Yo, I don't know if this light is good enough. I think I'm gonna hop out and restart upstairs, if you don't mind. So I'm gonna end this and start back up in a minute, okay? Well, screw it. If you want, I can, yeah, man, I'm in the basement. I don't have a lamp right here. Actually, let me just take you over to my little bait room. What up, Mike? Light should be better over here, dude. A little bit better, eh? How are you doing today, dude? You know, thank you for asking. Back is it's hanging in there. I'm doing some physical therapy these days, and so there's good days and there's bad days, to be honest. Still definitely recovering, but it's part of the process. The bones are healed, but the back is sore. So it is what it is. Thanks for asking, man. How are you doing? Now, if I'm not mistaken, you live in Texas. Is that right? You get to fish year round. You've been fishing the last week or so. How is quality of fishing for you right now? Are they on beds yet, or what? Oh, man, I'm so jealous. I honestly, I'm not gonna have early stages of bed fishing until late April, and it will go all the way through June. So, pretty crazy. I was doing bed fishing on Father's Day in June last year. Just absolutely ridiculous. So, what's up, guys? Let me run over to that other room and grab the box of baits that I had for this chat real quick. We're going to talk about chatterbaits, like a variety of different bladed jigs. My favorite ones to throw, some of the ones that I don't like as much, and we're going to talk about trailers as well. So we're going to go through 10, maybe upwards of 15 different bladed jigs, and then about 5 to 10 different trailers. So hang tight for 1 second. I'm coming. Ya vengo. All right. I was also just turning off my AC/heating so you could hear me a little bit better. Mike's the only one commenting. The other 3 of you, say something. Let me know you're here. Hit that thumbs up for me, just so I know you're here. But for the sake of engagement, since most of you guys on YouTube just watch, don't actually say anything, I'm going to bring some Instagram homies in as well. But Mike, if the quality is okay here on YouTube, stay there as opposed to hopping over on Instagram, all right? You're here. Appreciate you. All right. So 5 people in here now on YouTube. We're going to talk about bladed jigs, chatterbaits. We can talk a little bit about history for a minute first. As most of you know, hi from England. What's up, D. Griffey? Blake Unger on Instagram. What's up? Westphalen Given. Esteban, what's up? I'm not going to address everybody who hops in here right now, but I'm just going to get to chatting about chatterbaits. I've got my chatterbait box, bladed jig box here. It is filled up, overflowing, so I'm going to switch to a new container here shortly so that I can organize a little bit better. Last year I used to bring a dedicated little box of jackhammers to go, would bring some 10 or so jackhammers loaded with trailers already on them. So anyway, it goes without saying that the jackhammer is the best bladed jig on the market. People are dropping out of here on YouTube, not sure why, but anyway, I don't care. Whoever wants to watch can watch right now, and if you want to watch the playback, that's cool. So let's talk about the chatterbait. This is a very basic ZMan chatterbait here. It's been on the market now for pushing 15 years and didn't immediately take the market by storm, but have been winning pros tournaments for a long time now. And over the last 5 or so years, since some more premium bladed jigs have hit the market, I guess it's been longer than that, but chatterbaits have become a true staple in every bass fisherman's box. What up, Hernandez? What's up from the Netherlands, Thomas Fuller? How are you guys doing today? Talking about bladed jigs. So the chatterbait comes with a usually 4/0 or 5/0 hook on here and a metal blade. Now the snap tends to vary just a little bit. This is the one by Mustad, and I forget what brand is the more standard version on a chatterbait, but this one has become more typical on ZMan chatterbaits. This Mustad, I think it's called the fast tack or fast clip, something like that, and it works rather effectively. So ZMan has held it down over the last 10-15 years since putting out the chatterbait. They have a patent on the name, they have a patent on the design. Specifically, it is the attachment from the blade to the head directly, which allows for a faster startup time, which is one of the most essential things when fishing a chatterbait. Betsy says go fishing. I wish I could. We've gotten 10 inches of snow in the last 24 hours, so that would be awesome if I could, but it is frigid outside right now. We're talking 10 or 15 degrees. My wife and daughters are grocery shopping at the moment, decided to brave the cold and go out. I am just twiddling my thumbs and staring at tackle. So appreciate the sentiment, Betsy. Horse love, I would if I could, but I don't have that opportunity. So if you can go fishing, do it. Now, let's talk about how the chatterbait has evolved over time, because ZMan has put out now, I think they've got 10 or more chatterbaits in their lineup, and they have evolved from what was this old, very basic design with a lead single keeper and a big ass hook on here with a pretty simple painted stainless steel blade, maybe not even stainless steel, but then a very basic lead painted head with no design, and skirt has varied as well. So that standard chatterbait costs something like $5. You can get them on sale for even cheaper than that, and they do the job. Honestly, they're a good bait. But since then, ZMan has put out a wide variety of baits, and I'm going to show you a handful of them right now, because there's a really cool range, and a few that we should talk about that I don't necessarily have sitting in here are like here's one, the ZMan Chatterbait Elite. This is sold at Dick's and a bunch of other places. It's just a couple bucks more. Has a much better skirt on here. The skirt material is thinner and it flows better. The keeper is still the same lead keeper, but the hook is a little bit smaller, more like a 4/0 than a 5/0. And you get a better snap on the front of it. You know, obviously this one's not made by Decoy. It could just be like a BMC snap, but it is painted same color as the blade. And this hook is upgraded to a Gamakatsu hook. So the Elite is good. The custom that Tackle Warehouse sells exclusively is also very good. They've got some cool colors there that are exclusive to Tackle Warehouse. And those, like I said, are just a couple bucks more. Now, here's one that is relatively cheap and underrated. Nobody talks about this one. It is the Bucktail Chatterbait. This has a narrow triangular head and bucktail feathers on the back of it. It's got a strong Mustad Ultra Point, I think 4/0 hook on there, and it's wicked. This is the same head as another bait that I would like to mention, which is the ZMan Diezel Chatterbait. So same head design, different keeper though. On the Diezel, you get this very hardcore metal keeper, which does really well with holding Elastec trailers on there. It was designed to pair up with the ZMan Diezel Minnows swim bait. The Bucktail Chatterbait, on the other hand, just has this lead keeper, more so to hold on the bucktail feathers than anything. You know, a bait like this is not meant to have a trailer on back of it. So it is what it is, but once it wears down and the hand-tied portion of it comes apart and this bait falls apart, you can do what you want with it. You could retie some feathers on there, or like I've done before, you can just use it as a naked chatterbait and put no trailer on there, or no skirt, but rather just put a Yamamoto Zico or another soft plastic bait up on here, and it does a remarkable job. So naked chatterbaits are super underrated. Mike B says that is fire, and I agree. So both of these are cool. Really like the head shape. It's got a red eye, and that's one to their premium chatterbaits, to get the eye feature on it, which is weird to me because I think it makes a big difference in fishing. So the Bucktail Chatterbait, the Diezel Chatterbait, and then just running one of them naked. I mean, the Diezel Chatterbait is meant to be naked. It doesn't come with a skirt on it. Just comes, like I said, with the Diezel Minnows swim bait on there. Now, stepping up in Z-Man's lineup are three of my favorite baits. We'll start with the Freedom Chatterbaits. There are two of them. They've got the original Freedom Chatterbait, which is put out a few years ago. I want to say in like 2016, 2017. And it is a weedless chatterbait. Hang tight, guys. Yellow.
Hey, there is a 2-pound block of Tillamook cheese for $9.98. Should I get it or skip it?
Yeah, get it.
What?
Yeah, get it.
Okay.
All right, cool.
Bye.
That was my wife calling, asking if she should get a 2-pound block of Tillamook cheese on there from the grocery store. And if you don't know about Tillamook cheese coming out of Oregon, you're missing out. Tillamook is fire cheese, especially their cheddar. So let's get back to talking about the Freedom Chatterbait. Yeah, Hernandez, I picked up. That was my wife calling from the grocery store, asking if she should pick up some cheese. Now, the Freedom Chatterbait comes with an EWG style, relatively heavy duty hook on here. This is like the Super Line from Gamakatsu. EWG hook. I think this is a 4/0, maybe even a 5/0. And it's got a swim bait style head on here with a nice rounded head shape. It's got the red eyes, and what Freedom is known for, Freedom Tackle has this unique design inside the head which allows you to interchange the hook simply by twisting it. See if I can show you while we're on video here real quick. You twist the hook right off the head, and you can put whatever hook on here that you want. So that is absolutely wicked. If you wanted to put a flipping hook on here because you prefer a more exposed hook, you can do that. If you wanted to take the skirt off of here and just run it naked, you can do that. But what I think makes this unique is not just the ability to interchange the hook, but rather the EWG hook on there. That is something that really no other chatterbait on the market has. Hello, USA, says Russian Fishing. Well, hello back to you. So, EWG hook on this Freedom Chatterbait is a game changer. Allows you to run your trailers weedless. Like I said, there's really no other chatterbait with a EWG style hook, and likewise, there's no other bait with a weedless with a weed guard on it. That seems to be something that doesn't exist much still these days, which is weird to me. But that's something that we're going to talk about here in a second. Before I move on to talking about the other weedless chatterbait that I like to use, we're going to talk about the other Freedom chatterbait that exists on the market, and that is the new CFL Freedom chatterbait that was put out last year at ICAST. Another collaboration between ZMan and Freedom, so it's got that same feature inside the head. I'm not going to twist this hook off for you this time, but same exact feature, style of how you remove the hook and can interchange it for whatever you want. Now this comes with a finesse cut skirt on here, a football head that is coated with zinc, and a flippin' style short shank hook on here with a really good lead keeper designed to hold Elaztec baits. It's actually really sharp and will keep your baits on there remarkably well, even though it's poured with just lead, I believe. So it's got a much shorter hook than others, but it is a flippin' style hook, I think made by BMC, and it is sharp and strong. So this bait was designed to run low. It stayed down in the water column. Chatterbaits are known to rise up. That is just a reality of the bait, especially when you're throwing lighter weight baits and they've got trailers on them, especially if you're throwing a paddle tail, which you shouldn't be. We'll talk about that in a minute, but chatterbaits want to rise up. This Freedom CFL chatterbait stays down. So definitely worth having in the box. I've got 3 or 4 of them already. The other one we just talked about was that Freedom chatterbait with the EWG hook. Both of them are sweet. So now let's go and address just weedless chatterbaits in general. I've recently taken the skirts off of a lot of my chatterbait heads because I'm thinking about making some of them weedless. The Project Z Chatterbait by ZMan, and I'm going to use the word chatterbait when I'm talking about ZMan bladed jigs because that is their term. It's patented, but the ZMan Project Z comes in a weedless version, has this stock weed guard on it. It comes in a regular version, but I don't recommend it simply because it has a different design where the line tie comes off the head quite a bit, and so as you're fishing it, it makes quite a bit less noise. It just makes the sound of the blade, which is significant, but the blade does not hit the head nearly as much as fishing other chattering style baits. Mike, what'd you say? Grip pin on the Freedom head. Absolutely, man. Now, it doesn't come stock, but I highly recommend that. In fact, I've got one rigged up like that. Must add grip pin, EWG style hook. is going to hold Aztec trailers on there way better than a standard EWG hook that just doesn't have a keeper on it. So I feel you on that 100%. The Freedom Chatterbait, again, has a Mustad style, Mustad brand hook. I think this is a 4/0. Has a double barbed keeper, lead keeper, and their skirt that is flared out pretty well. So if you cut it down just a little bit, it is going to pulse quite well in the water. With that weed guard, it can come through a lot of cover. And I love the designs, the colors. They paint the heads well. It is just a higher quality chatterbait, but like I said, it makes a different noise while fishing it because the blade does not hit the head nearly as much. But with that weed guard, you get an advantage that you don't get with pretty much every other bladed jig or chatterbait on the market, which is weird to me. While we're on the topic, we'll talk about the best bladed jig on the market, and that is the ZMan Evergreen Jackhammer. Another collaboration. Evergreen International is a Japanese lure manufacturer, and they teamed up with ZMan a few years ago to make this epic chatterbait. It's got a 4/0 Gamakatsu flipping hook, double wire keeper. It's painted incredibly well. It's got a detailed painted stainless steel blade. I forget the name of the company who makes the blade. And it's got a decoy egg snap on the front. Got really detailed eyes on the head. And it comes with a hand-tied skirt on there. So it's one thing that I wanted to talk about. Is you're going to get better movement and more realism out of a hand-tied skirt than you are one that's got a keeper and it's pushed up over there. That said, the jackhammer is hand-tied with like braid material on it. It's not tied with a copper wire or something more substantial. So I've had a few times now. Now, I've had a couple dozen of the jackhammers, but I've had a couple of the baits where the trailer has come undone somewhat early after starting to fish the bait. I doubt you could see, but this bait is just barely worn. You know, just a little bit of paint has chipped off the blade, and the bottom is a little bit rough. I haven't lost too much paint, but you know, I've caught a few fish on this bait and fished it maybe a half a dozen outings, and that skirt just started coming apart. Mike says Kevlar string. Well, either way, it is string, and that has come undone for me a little too easily, in my opinion. So I am going to most likely retie the skirt on there, or maybe even run this one naked because I do like naked chatterbaits. Kate Stevens, what's up, dude? But before I do that, Mike's asking, do all the jackhammers have tungsten heads? No, only the Japanese models do. So unfortunately, at this point, if you buy a jackhammer, you're going to get one made in China and with a lead head, not a tungsten head, just because they've outsourced that to China. You're going to have to buy them on the JDM market. It's possible you could buy them through Carolina Fishing Tackle or the Hookup Tackle and get one that's made in Japan and has a tungsten head, but no, not all the jackhammers have tungsten heads. In fact, most of them do not these days. Pretty much every one that we all have in our boxes are going to have lead heads. So I don't find that it makes that much of a difference, though it certainly could when it comes to the size of the head and the sound that it makes. But the reason that the jackhammer is so unique is the thinness and strength of the blade itself, how close the blade and the head are, how well this is designed, and the sound that it makes in contacting the head. It is extremely loud, and it starts up faster than any other chatterbait. It is the most aggressive chatterbait on the market. So there's something about it that the fish just want to either kill it or stop the vibration because it's annoying to them. but it is more effective than any other chatterbait on the market by a long shot. So while it is pricey, it's well worth the price. So it retails for like $15.99. The heavier models are a little bit more, $1 or $2 more than that. But as I say in almost all my videos these days, you can go on discounttackle.com and get them for 20% off, $12.79 or something like that, any day of the year. So, Mike, you haven't tried the jackhammer, dude? You get on Discount Tackle and pick up a couple. Shoot, I'm tempted to even send you one, man. I've got a couple here that I don't have open. Here in the Heights Hot Craw and the Brett's Bluegill color, and I've got 10 or 15 of them in my box. It is pretty much the only bladed jig / chatterbait that I throw anymore, and it is well worth it. This one here that you can see has been fished just quite a bit more. The skirt is still intact. The blade is losing a lot of its paint, and the head is really rough on bottom. But I caught a bunch of 3, 4, and 5-pound fish here in Colorado last year, which is really big for here locally. Caught my biggest fish on this specific bait here, and so I've got it in like 5, 6 different colors. A few different variations of white. So I've got the standard white. I've got the green pumpkin shad, which is green pumpkin on top and like a see-through white on bottom, and the heads are painted just perfectly to match up with the skirt. So this one here is a green pumpkin shad with a razor shads trailer, and I mean, you can't beat this thing. It's banging. This one here is a Heights Hot Craw with a turbo craws in the molting craw color, and I like to throw the craw one in a heavier weight. This is a 1/2 ounce here, and as you can see, I've beat it up just by grinding bottom, ripping it up kind of like I would a slow rattle trap in the springtime. Fish it down deeper just off the bottom. And then lastly, the other one that I've got rigged up is a straight green pumpkin with a green pumpkin Diezel Minnows in the 4-inch. We'll talk about trailers in just a second here. Other colors that I really like is Bee-Height Delight and Brett's Bluegill are probably my 2 favorite green pumpkin variations. I just showed you a standard green pumpkin and the green pumpkin shad. I showed you the Heights Hot Craw, and then of course black and blue. I throw a lot of black and blue in the summer in dirty water. This black and blue with any black and blue trailer will absolutely kill it. I had this bait with a black and blue 4-inch Diezel Minnows rigged up and tied on for, I don't know, a month straight last summer. Caught 50 or more fish on the exact same bait and trailer before the trailer started wearing, and I ended up hanging up the bait and losing it, unfortunately. But it was so effective for me that I did not untie it or even have to switch out the trailer. So super, super effective. Highly recommend it. Mike, you need to get on that, dude. You said turbo craws for the win. Absolutely. I've got the turbo craws in like 3 or 4 different colors in my ZMan speed bag, specifically for chatterbait trailers. Got it in white, got it in green pumpkin, got it in this molten craw color. So anyway, that's a great bait. We'll talk about trailers in 1 second. The last chattering style bait that I want to talk about at the moment is the Strike King Thunder Cricket. Now, this was another collaboration with Z-Man, so really smart Strike King's part in getting the license for this bait. They've got the direct head to blade connection that Z-Man has patented. They've actually got a little swivel where the blade moves up and down on the head. In my opinion, that doesn't do too much, but it does make the action just a little bit less aggressive. What makes this bait super, super cool is that it's got a 4-aught owner jungle flipping hook. In my opinion, that is the best hook you could put in a chatterbait, and it is just a little bit better than the Gamakatsu hook in the jackhammer. Not by much, but just a little bit sharper, a little bit stronger. I like owner hooks the best of all on the market. This blade, as you can see, is shaped just a little bit more rounded than the hexagonal blade that Z-Man uses on all their chatterbaits. It's got a really strong snap on there. It's got detailed eyes and kind of a flat head like the jackhammer does. These are great for skipping and are not going to roll over quite as much as other chatterbaits due to that flat head. Now the hook, the skirt on it is not hand tied. It's a little bit lower quality and wants to shred up easier. So that is one thing that I think was a little bit of an oversight on Strike King's part. They could have put more quality and detail into the skirt on the Thunder Cricket. But that said, this is a very, very high quality bladed jig on the market right now, and I put it number 2 next to the jackhammer. It is a little bit cheaper. That is what Strike King and a lot of imitators like to do when they put out an imitation bait that is a direct copy of a top performer on the market, is put out something as close to it in quality for just a little bit less in price. They know that people like you, Mike, aren't quite willing to spend the $16 on a jackhammer, but might be willing to spend $13. You know, this retailed at $11.99 when it came out last year at the Bassmaster Classic, and then almost immediately they upped the price to $13.99, which was weird to me. You can still go on Kevin Van Dam's website, Van Dam Warehouse, and find it for that $11.99 price tag. Plus, he's got 10% off of everything from Strike King at all times, so you can buy this bait for $10. Though, if you go on discounttackle.com, they have it at the retail price of $13.99 minus 30% off of all Strike King products. So you get this for $9 something, not quite $10. Again, cheapest place you can buy the Thunder Cricket is on discounttackle.com. Cheapest place you can buy the jackhammer, discounttackle.com. So I'm not going to plug them that much more in this video, but come on, guys. If you're wanting to buy the best products on the market for the cheapest that you can find them, it's on Discount Tackle, and that's just a fact. There are a few other bladed jigs that we will just quickly run through for the sake of talking about how they're different. This right here is the Booyah Melee. It's different, dude. It's got this wire cutout inside the head. I don't know if you can see that, where the blade is attached. So it's not coming off the front where the line tie would be on like a swim jig, but rather in the middle of the head. Gives it just a little bit of a different action. They've got mylar material inside the skirt and a little bit longer shank of a hook and a strong wire keeper on bottom. I like this bait. I find that the action is pretty consistent in terms of the vibration that you feel out of it. And they've got the weight printed on the blade there, where the Thunder Cricket and the jackhammer have the weight printed on the bottom of the head. That is a useful thing just because it's often hard to tell what you got in your box, whether it's 1/4 ounce, 3/8, 1/2 ounce. Sometimes you can't quite tell what is what. So having the bait tell you that is a useful feature. I find that the Melee is a good bait. It's got good detail, good action. I like that one. One that I am not as sure about The Melee costs something like $8 or $9. You can find it at a lot of different places. This is the Molix Lover. Now it is different. It's got a plastic blade attached directly to the head, and then the skirt trails behind this little fish body, but there's a rattle inside the head, a snap on the front, and then a short little like 2/0 flipping style hook with a double barbed plastic keeper on there. And it's interesting. It's not super consistent in action, but it's different. And with that rattle, I kind of like it. I don't find that it's quite worth the price tag. It's something like 10 or 11 bucks, but it was interesting enough for me to try. This one also is interesting, made by Fishhead, and it is a combination of a bladed jig and an underspin. It's got a blade hanging off the bottom of the head and a blade coming off of a split ring right off the top of the head. So get a different profile out of this. Pretty nice skirt, just a standard hook and lead keeper. I like it, don't love it. Hard to say when I'm going to use this. I would use it around schooling fish, particularly when there's a shad spawn, or in lieu of a spinnerbait, just for the fun of it, and to try something different. I like it, but don't love it, if we're being honest. One bait that I do really like and used a lot before the jackhammer came out is the Strike King Rageblade. Totally different, the way that the head and the lead weight hangs off the bottom here. Makes it a little bit more weedless than other baits, just because it will protect the hook even when it pushes out of the way. It doesn't want to roll quite as much, but even when it does, it doesn't hang up nearly as much as other chatterbaits. So Strike King Rageblade is one that has kind of lost its popularity just because so many new bladed jigs have hit the market the last few years, but I really like the Rageblade. One that is on the market that I don't like is the Terminator plastic blade. Damn it, my connection is... Yo, if you're on YouTube, I think I just cut out and came back in. Leave me a comment, let me know that the connection is okay right now and you can hear me. Mike, you said you've used them. Maybe that's the Rageblade. What about the shuttering bait from Terminator? I'm back. Cool. Terminator shuttering bait, I actually don't like. It's got a heavy hook, wire keeper, short shank hook, but here's the deal. If you look at the head, not only does it have a really rounded bottom of the head, which makes it more prone to rolling over, but it has a big old split ring and this plastic lipped curved blade on the front, which is just strange to me. So the blade is actually really far away from the head, and so it eliminates any sound. So it's much more of like a silent type of vibrating jig, and its action is rather inconsistent. So when you fish it, you can feel that vibration. It's got a slower startup, but then every now and again, as it's coming through the water, you can't quite feel it, and that bothers me. I use that as a telltale sign to know that I'm getting a bite ordinarily. So when you're fishing a chatterbait or a chattering style bait, you should feel that blade kicking side to side the entire time. You should feel it through your rod tip, and when it stops, you've either got grass or something caught up on the blade, or a fish just grabbed it. That's when you're going to pop it, or you're going to set the hook to clean off the blade, or, like I said, set the hook. So using a bait that has inconsistent action or that you can't feel very well, that vibration transmitting, it just bugs me. I prefer not to use them. So I have 2 of these shuttering baits in my arsenal, used them for a day or 2 and put them straight back in my box. And they're almost in mint condition, and I'm really tempted to just give them away. But I'm not sure if anybody would be too excited about me doing a giveaway for a product that I'm just not a fan of. So anyway, Dan Lidner said, never dropped the connection there. That's good to know. Mike, haven't used much Terminator products. Maybe they're spinnerbaits back in the day. Yeah, Terminator is a brand owned by Rapala. So I don't know how many products they have. And also, I agree, I'm not much of a fan. Grandma Pat, what's up? Hope you're having a great Sunday morning. I'm just chatting about baits real quick. So we're going to move on. I think that covers pretty much all of the bladed jigs or chatterbaits that I wanted to talk about, and that's 10 or 15 of them. We're going to talk about trailers for a few minutes before I hop off. And we will start with, I made a video here on YouTube that is specifically like top 10 chatterbait trailers in 2019 and beyond, and I recommend that you go check that out if you haven't already. We'll start with straight tail trailers, and most popular and the best one, in my opinion, is the Z-Man Razor Shads. It is made from Elastec, so it's super durable. It's got a wider profile than most. It's kind of a fat bait, but it is shaped just like a shad. So it's thick on top, and it's more narrow on bottom. It's tapered like a fish, like a boat, and comes through the water quite nice. It's got a segmented tail and a segmented body and a straight forked tail. So it's got really good action coming through the water and was made exclusively for chatterbaits. You can fish it on other rigs and have a lot of success with it, but this is one of the best chatterbaits on the market. Kid Iraq, what's up? Say, can't catch anything on a chatterbait, even a jackhammer, with any trailer or color that you've used. Same with spinnerbait. I hate on you, Kid Iraq, but I will say it probably has more to do with you and the way that you're fishing it, not your body of water and the fish you're going for, unless you're not fishing for bass. Depends on, why don't you answer first what fish you're targeting? Are you fishing for bass, or is it another species of fish? Because it is an aggressive bait in nature. It's a reaction bait, so you have to have more aggressive fish to go after it. So let me know that first. You can take it. Largemouth bass? All right. Hate to say it, but it's you, man. It's not the body of water. It's the way that you're fishing it. So mix it up the way that you're fishing it. Chatterbaits want to rise in the water. So that's something I talked about earlier in this stream. They naturally rise up. You're going to have to start fishing it a little bit slower and focus on using Z-Man chatterbaits that are going to have a more consistent action where you can feel that blade the entire way back to you. Use a trailer that is not a standard paddle tail swim bait, and it will stay down in the water just a little bit better. So I'd recommend using either a straight tail like one of these that we're talking about right now. The other two that are just like the Razor Shads are the Yamamoto Zico and the Strike King Rageblade. As you can see, the bodies are both segmented just like that Razor Shads, and the tails are straight and forked. So these baits were all made and designed specifically for chatterbaits. They've got flat heads. They've got, a whole boat style fish type of profile where it's narrow on bottom and it's wider and flat on top. So these baits were all designed for chatterbaits. Use one of these as a trailer or use a cross style trailer. Okay, that will almost for sure up your bite and landing percentage than if you're using just a standard paddle tail trailer. You say, got Gary's in every color of razor sheds. No way, dude. Okay. So slow down and change your retrieve, okay? So one retrieve that worked really well for me, yeah, Dan, you're right. Zico's do come now in another version that is a paddle tail, which I think should be interesting because it still has the segmented body, but a paddle tail on back. I don't think it's going to be as good for chatterbaits as the standard Zico, but it should be a good swim bait in theory. I find that Yamamoto products are just a little bit pricey, not very durable, but have good action on them. So maybe not the best for a trailer so much as a specific standalone bait. So I like the Zico a lot and still use it a lot. Recommend it. But Kid Iraq, use one of those Zicos or razor shads and try a different retrieve, okay? Fish it slow. And then one other retrieve that worked really well for me last year was like every third or fourth rotation of the reel, then I do a quick one or two, speed it up. So that thing's coming steady through the water and then just jumps, trying to get away. And usually right after doing that and then going back to a standard retrieve, fish will grab it. If every now and again you kill it and let it go back down to bottom, that's going to make a difference because what you're going to do is as you're fishing it, especially too fast, it's coming high up in the water and it's almost wanting to rise up out of the water, but you're fishing it too high in the water column. A lot of times, if the fish are not up and feeding, they're not going to come up and get that. You got to run it right by them, and usually right by a piece of cover. So it makes a big difference, how you fish it. So if you're fishing it too fast, stop it every few rotations of the reel, let it go back down to bottom, then reel, stop. That way, if it's rising up, then it'll come back down. Rise up, come back down. And you're much more likely to run it right by some fish and you'll get more bites. So I'm sad to hear that you haven't got any bites, haven't landed fish on a chatterbait because it was my most effective bait that I used last year by a long shot. It was the chatterbait and specifically the jackhammer. So Mike, you need to get yourself jackhammer or 2 or 10. I know they're expensive, but honestly, you got to get on that. Kid Iraq, you got to fish it differently. Just switch it up, man. Don't do it on a straight retrieve. And if you are doing a straight retrieve, you got to speed up how you're using the reel. Okay. Now let's move on from straight tails. Talk about I guess we can talk about paddle tail swim baits for a minute. So Kitech makes the Swing Impact, not the Swing Impact Fat that is their super popular swim bait, but rather their narrow-bodied, warm water, wide swinging swim bait. This is much thinner, narrower than the Swing Impact Fat, and it is a good bait to throw on the back of a chatterbait. In fact, this saltwater series chartreuse back pearl color paired up on a Beehite Delight jackhammer was the bait that I caught my biggest bass on, and that was last season. It was about a 5-pounder. So anyway, the Swing Impact by Kitech is a good one for sure. As you can see, wow, hurts to reach like that. As you can see here, I've got a box of Swing Impacts exclusively. Most of them, half of these are 4-inch, half of these are 4.5-inch. The 4-inch is a perfect chatterbait trailer. The 4.5 is a good warm water standalone swim bait to throw on an exposed hook jig head or even rig weedless. The other swim bait by Kitech that I would recommend as a chatterbait trailer is the Easy Shiner. Okay, this is a little bit more subtle of a swim bait. Better in early season cold water. It's got a shorter tail section, does not bend over nearly as much. But because the paddle tail is really thin, it is not affected quite as much. The action is not so aggressive like the swing impact fat, and it does quite well on a chatterbait. I've got a box of 6 colors of the easy shiners there. So those two I would recommend. The Yamamoto Swim Sanko. I don't even know where I got those. Oh, I can't find them at the moment. But the Swim Sanko, maybe that's here. I've only got 3 colors of it. This box is not filled up. The Yamamoto Swim Sanko in the 4-inch is a pretty good one to throw. It has just a little pinch or segment in the tail section, and it's got just a worm front half. Again, not very durable, as is standard for Yamamoto soft plastics, but it does surprisingly well because it's got a small paddle tail, a thin tail section, and that little pinched area. So, does surprisingly well on a chatterbait. What I don't recommend is that you use the swing impact fat or a rage swimmer or a standard paddle tail swim bait, just because that action of the tail is going to be too aggressive and it's going to fight the blade. The blade is going to create turbulence coming through the water. Everything behind it is going to be affected. The trailer is going to be affected by that. So a straight tail can just do its thing and follow that water that's being pushed. But a paddle tail is going to want to have its natural action. And when the water's already being pushed, what it's going to do is rise up in the water and get lazy. And it's just going to have some weird looking action. The fish don't like it as much. And the trailer doesn't do what it's supposed to do. So don't use a standard paddle tail swim bait as a trailer on your chatterbaits. One that I do recommend is the ZMan Diezel Minnows in the 4-inch. Now, Mike says rig it upside down. True. You can definitely do that. You can rig a paddle tail upside down so that tail is standing up instead of facing down, and it will handle that turbulence quite a bit better. It's not going to rise up just because of the shape of most paddle tails not being perfectly round. It has to do with the shape of the bait. So once you turn it over, the tail doesn't have the ability to raise up nearly as much. So that does work. If you're cheap, maybe like Mike, or you just don't want to have a lot of exclusive baits. If you want more versatility and you want to use a swim bait as a trailer, go ahead and use a swing impact bat or a rage swimmer, but make sure you rig it upside down. That would work. Now the Diezel Minnows, especially in the 4-inch size, is a good chatterbait trailer. Now here's why. It has a pretty subtle action on its own. It does not swing very wide, and the tail is pretty subtle. It is it's a different shape than most paddle tails are, and I don't know why, but it works surprisingly well on chatterbaits. As I told you earlier in this video, Z-Man makes the Diezel chatterbait, made exclusively for the Diezel Minnows. They match up perfectly, and it works really well naked coming through the water. So I do endorse the Diezel Minnows as a chatterbait trailer, and as I told you, I used one of these in black and blue on the black and blue jackhammer. Did not have to take it off for like a month straight last year. So that one I'd recommend having in black and blue, green pumpkin, white, so that you could use it as a trailer or as a standalone swim bait or as a swim jig trailer. It is a versatile bait for sure. Lastly, the other type of trailer that I do recommend on a chatterbait is a cross style bait. My absolute favorite is the Strike King Rage Menace Grub. Okay, Rage Menace Grub is a super versatile bait you can use in almost any presentation. You can use it as a trailer or you can use it as a flipping bait, and it is killer. So it's good on chatterbaits, spinnerbaits, jigs of all kinds, and Texas rig, Tokyo rig, anything you want. The Rage Menace is an absolute killer. Got a dedicated box of Rage Menace grubs. Got them in watermelon red, Falcon Lake craw, blue craw, pearl white, bluegill, black and blue. Even got some in green pumpkin, and I throw that bait a lot for a number of different presentations. The other in its family that I'd recommend is the Rage Bug. Okay, the Rage Bug, just a little bit different, has a flat body, and this bug was designed to be more of a Texas rig or flippin' beaver style bait, but it's got great action. You can pull off these side appendages and rig it on a chatterbait, and it's going to have just a little bit different action. These tails are a little longer, so the action is going to be a little bit more flappy, and because it's flat, you can skip it better than you could with a Rage Menace, which is totally round. So the Rage Menace is round, Rage Bug is flat. So keep that in mind, and what you can do with it. The Rage Menace is going to want to roll a little bit more. That Rage Bug is not. So sometimes flat matters depending on the way that you're presenting the lure to the fish. The others like it that I like, got a couple sitting here. Guggenbait's Bandito Bug. Now it's a direct copy. Imitation is the best flattery, right? Guggenbait's Bandito Bug uses the patent that the Rage Tail products have. So they licensed that patent for the Bandito Bug, and it's a very effective bait. It has just a little bit different action, different material, and obviously that unique scent that the Guggenbaits have. The Zoom Z Craw is a great one. It has no side appendages off the body, though it does have ribs all along the side, and it's got that same flanged tail. Not sure how they got around that Rage Tail patent, or if it existed before the Z Craw was made. It's possible that that bait was out before the Rage Tail. And the last one is, what am I forgetting? Yeah, ZMan Turbo Cross. We already talked about that one. But Turbo Cross is a great one. Mike already mentioned, For the Win. It is super similar to another one that I'd recommend, and that is the Zoom Ultra Vibe Speed Craw. The way that these claws are cut out at an angle. It swims incredibly well. So you can fish it like a craw, or you can swim it through the water column, and it's got an awesome flapping action. So Z-Man Turbo Craws or the Zoom Ultra Vibe Speed Craw are great craw trailers. The other one that is very close to the Rage Bug and the Bandito Bug is the Spicy Beaver by Reaction Innovations. It's a newer bait, very similar in design, and works quite well. Mike is saying the Christy Critter would be sweet. I don't disagree with that. Christy Critter would work well. I think you could use a lot of different creature style baits, and they would be effective while presenting it low and slow, or you want just more of an aggressive action. So summertime, you can put a lot of different things on a chatterbait, but it depends on the year and what you're trying to imitate. So CGAZ Outdoors, Jim Zacto, or however it's spelled, this is my go-to. Sorry that I haven't been paying attention to comments coming through on Instagram. There's only been a few of you in here at a time. But whatever. Not paying attention to you guys. Kid Iraq, low and slow. That's what's up. So, for the most part, that makes it up. There are 2 other trailers that I didn't mention that I should, I suppose, when we're talking about straight tails. We talked about the Razor Shad, the Zico, and the Rage. Well, it's not even Rage, but the Strike King Blade Minnow. Those are 3 of my favorite straight tail trailers. The Castaic Jerky J is one that is super underrated, not talked about very much. It was made to be a trailer on a scrounger head, and it excels there. It's got a really thin tail, realistic minnow profile, and it slays on a chatterbait, guys. Now, I prefer to swim it naked or on a scrounger because of the detail that it's got, but it works really well on the back of a chatterbait. So that is one that I would recommend looking into. They're actually pretty affordable. You get like 8 to a pack for $5. So for how good of baits they are really not. And the last one that is worth a look is the Kitech Shad Impact. Doubt you guys have heard much about this one. It has a different action to it, okay? This is the 5-inch, so too big for a chatterbait. You'd have to cut this down, but they do make it in a 4-inch and maybe even a 3.5 that would both work well on chatterbaits. And because of its narrow body, this is just like the Easy Shiner, but it's called the Shad Impact. It's got that thin, narrow shad-style body and this long tail on it. It has a much different wobbling action coming through the water. So also a great scrounger head trailer, but works well on a chatterbait. The scrounger is just like a finesse version of the chatterbait. So definitely worth having. Kid Iraq says, that was on my mini trick years ago. I'm going to take it from you. Apply it to the chatterbait. When should you start throwing them? You can throw a chatterbait starting early spring. So I throw it in lieu of or alongside a rattle trap in early spring. When you're throwing red rattle traps, I'd whip out a red chatterbait. Though you can throw a green pumpkin. And I would use it to imitate the same thing. So rattle trap, you're going to imitate a craw on bottom by ripping it up off the bottom, doing kind of a yo-yo retrieve, letting it settle to bottom, rip it up, let it settle back down, rip it up. You can do the same thing with the chatterbait. So just throw it a little bit further away from cover because you are more prone to hanging it up. But if you know where there's a rock pile, if you know where there's a laydown, if you know where there's a good drop off or a point, throw it out there, let it settle down to bottom, and then lift it up off bottom. You'll feel that blade chatter, 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 and then let it settle back down. It will have enough of a presence and drawing power to bring fish over to it that then probably on your 3rd or 4th pull up, as it's falling back down, that dying action, they'll grab it. So I'd start throwing it sooner than later. You know, for me, that's going to be late March, early April, in pre-spawn when I've got, after ice out, when I've got some open water and can start fishing, but certainly before the spawn. So I would throw it in pre-spawn. Instagram, we're at the 1 hour mark. You guys are outies. And homies over on YouTube, I got to dip out of here in a minute. Ask me a question or two if you've got one. Kid Iraq saying, rock on, you'll be the 3rd RO. No, after I get one. You'll be the 3rd person to know after you get one on a chatterbait. Wife and kid are your number 1 and 2. Right on. Well, please do let me know once you catch one on a chatterbait. And if you have any other questions, do let me know. I showed you a ton of different baits. And honestly, I would not mess with the majority of them. If you're cheap and only want to spend $3, $4, $5 on a chatterbait then fine. Go with the standard ZMan original chatterbait, and you get a decent product. They will do the job. They'll catch fish. If you want to spend a couple extra bucks, go to the Elite or the Custom, where you're going to get a better hook and a better quality skirt. But again, between the head realism and the material of the blade, you're not stepping up a lot. I would go to the Weedless Project Z. I would go to the Thunder Cricket, and I would go to the Jackhammer as go-to baits. Those Freedom Chatterbaits work quite well also. So those are probably my top 5, are both of the Freedom Chatterbaits, the Weedless Project Z, the Thunder Cricket, and the Jackhammer. And you don't need to mess with much else. Now, of course, there are some others out on the market. I've heard that the Picasso Shock Blade is an absolute slayer, and that's one that I need to try. But Kid Iraq, you're asking one more question. Line size. Typically, I'm throwing chatterbaits on 15-pound fluorocarbon straight. You can throw it on braid to a leader. You could throw it on mono if you want, but I'd recommend fluorocarbon. You could throw it on 12-pound or 15-pound, and that's probably going to be the most versatile line size for you, because you can throw other presentations on it too. So you could throw it on the same rod and reel that you throw that rattle trap in pre-spawn, kind of a medium heavy. A lot of people like to throw it on glass rods, or more of a medium heavy, moderate action, but honestly, you're fine doing it on a medium heavy power, fast action rod with a high speed reel on 15-pound fluorocarbon. Okay? Appreciate you guys' time. Thanks for watching. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Enjoy your Sunday, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.